Hey folks, welcome back to the show. I want to talk to you today about disqualifying to qualify and why you should actively turn clients away, repel them, and tell them to go somewhere else, and why that might be the very best business strategy to attract and win consulting business. All that and more coming up on this episode of Consulting Mastery. Why is it that when you push people away, they they just find a way to come back? What is the psychology of this, Carrie? Why does it work so well in contrast to when you try to get someone to buy or join, or you really try to sell them hard? It repels them. What is the psychology of this? Enlighten me.
I feel like we are now having a crossover into the world of dating podcasts because this isn't just true in business, right? This is true everywhere. And the reality is that nobody is attracted in any way to desperation. And so, extreme examples, pushing someone away, but versus chasing them are the two extreme ends of that continuum. But the reality is that the more desperate you seem, the more clingy you are, the more, in somebody's face you are, the less likely they are going to want to be around you. And if we switch from dating back to business again, they're not necessarily going to then see you as the expert that you are, right? They're not going to see you as the person who is confident enough and clear enough in what they deliver that you're going to do the best thing for them.
I'll tell you where this came from. This morning I was chatting with our enrollment team, and we have a team of SDRs who take the initial consultations with prospective clients, and they pass on the qualified folks who are looking for help and want to work with us to me. Currently, that's the process. And one of my team members was, a little bit bummed, and kind of like just not, feeling kind of low energy and not in the best place. And so, what's going on? He goes, well, in the past 3 days, I've only set up one appointment with you. And I go, so? Because, well, I'm not used to that kind of volume. I usually am putting up better numbers. And the question I asked him was, okay, but what's your role here? What do you, to use an Office Space reference, like, what exactly is it that you would say you do around here, right? Like, what's your purpose in the organization? And then that got him to reflect, and he said, well, I want to show up for our clients and our prospects. I want to make sure they feel served, and I want to give them good advice, and I want to make them feel heard, and and I want to qualify the right people for organization. And he gave this long list, and I said, listen, stop thinking of yourself as a salesperson. You're not a salesperson. And I think that identity, that mindset causes lots of problems, because if you think of yourself as a salesperson, you're going to try to sell people into some kind of an outcome. Right, you're going to have some kind of an agenda. In the case of my team member, his agenda would be, as a salesperson, set people up with Ahmed, right? And that agenda is going to shine through, and they're going to feel it, and they're going to read it, and they're going to see it, and they're going to resist it because they know you have an agenda. And what I said to him was, you're not really a salesperson. You're more like a recruiter, in that you're looking for the right talent. You're looking for the right candidates. You're looking for the right people that because of your history with the organization, that we could do tremendous work with. We could really help them knock it out of the park. But I want you to be more selective, like a recruiter. What is a recruiter? A good recruiter, at least. There's lots of bad ones, right? But a good one doesn't just stack resumes on a desk and book a bunch of interviews. They tee up the best quality candidates for the hiring manager, so that the hiring manager can look at as few resumes as possible, conduct as few interviews as possible, and find the right person. And that's, I think, a better analogy to what we're doing in our organization than selling is. We're looking for the right people. We have a lot of inbound flow because we're great marketers, and we're looking for who are the best fits. And my contention here, for those of you listening, is you should probably think more along those lines than the traditional sales approach, which is, what is that really dated philosophy? It's like, a prospect and then a suspect and then I don't even know. Like there's so much crap in the sales world, right? Where and the whole philosophy is let's get people to take action so we can use that action against them, right? Get them to opt into a funnel. So we can use that action to get them into a meeting. So we can use that action to get them into a demo. And it's a very like, like let's cajole people into let's kind of corner them into a place where like they don't have a choice but to buy. And our philosophies is frankly fundamentally different. It's more like let's push people away as much as possible, right? And get the right people to see that working with us is the right move for them, and then have them come to us on the back of that understanding.
Yeah, there's a danger here as well, just when you talk about the conversation this morning, that focusing on the numbers can become truly problematic as well. And that's true whether your job, in the case of the person we're speaking about, is to be part of that process of engaging people and, connecting them if they need to be connected. But it's just as true if you are the solopreneur out there, or the owner of a smaller business who's out there making these connections and having these conversations on behalf of your organization. And we see this with the folks that we work with, because they will come to us with the numbers, right? I had 10 sales conversations last week. And then the question is, okay, great. Like, that's amazing. Something's working. Also, how many of those were people that you actually wanted to talk to, that would be good candidates that you want to work with? And yes, there's always a numbers game in this, the idea of bringing people through the stages that they need to go through to eventually work with you if they're the right person. But as important as the number, more important than the number, is the quality. And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that and get really stuck on, what are the digits that you're writing down in your tracker day after day and week after week. Because having one great call, which is a spectacular fit, is infinitely better for so many reasons than having, 9 where one was potentially okay.
All roads lead back to, do you know who you're selling to? Or to put it a better way, frankly, do you know who you want to attract? Right? Because some folks may be listening to this and thinking to themselves, well, that's easy for you to say because you have all this demand and all this inbound volume and all this. And so you can afford to turn opportunity away and disqualify and be very particular. Yeah, but how do you think we got here? We didn't get here by taking calls left, right, and center, or taking on clients who were completely outside of our scope, or we got here through focus, right? And so the reason we're able to do this, and the reason we're able to, in our case, we're actively disqualifying people at a number of levels. There's an application that you got to fill out first to even get on a call with a team member. That application disqualifies, last I checked, 60% of people get disqualified just from the application. 40% get passed through, and then from them, another 60 to 80% of them get disqualified before they talk to me, and then so on and so forth, right? And so the point is, me as the founder and as the the person that's ultimately enrolling people, like I am talking to the cream of the crop. I'm talking to people that our system has vetted to be the highest quality and worthy of my time and attention. And at that point, it is a numbers game. At that point, the more of those people I talk to, the better we're going to do, and the more we're going to grow, and the more revenue and all that fun stuff. But it's not a numbers game when you're talking to the wrong people. That's not a numbers game. That's a losing game. Taking 5 or 10 calls a week or a couple of weeks every month, whatever the time frame may be, with fundamentally the wrong people that you don't want to work with, can't work with, don't want to help, can't help, or just not a perfect fit to work with you, is a fantastic way to get burnt out. And it's hilarious to me how many of our quote unquote competitors are still selling propositions like, we will flood your calendar with calls, 10, 20, 30 calls a week. And I'm like,
that's a
who
good
the
thing.
heck wants that?
Yeah.
I don't want that many calls. I want clients. I don't want a flooded calendar with calls. And you've got to wonder if they can flood your calendar with calls, what's the quality of those calls? Are they the right people, or are they just taking up space?
Yeah, and I want to just be clear that this is, because you talked about all of the steps that someone has to go to be able to speak with you, and a lot of the folks listening don't have all of those gates in place, nor should they. There's a particular kind of volume that we're dealing with that requires that. But the question that for all of you to ask yourselves is, what can I do, right? What are the things that I can do to ensure that the people that are getting to me are most of the time the right people?
Yeah.
And this comes down to the thing we're always talking about, right? Which is clarity around who your target market is, which is clarity around what is it you're offering. All of those things really dialed down, and then the the strength of will to stick to that. That's what will have you have those conversations that you want to have. Because there are two risks. I think, you talked about burnout. The second risk, which is probably more insidious in some ways, is you'll just start to decide that all these wrong people that I'm talking to are now the ones I'm going to serve, right? Because they're the easy catch. They're the deal I can close. If I just change my offer, if I just switch things up, if I just promise something that I didn't really want to do, or that I can't do as well as the thing that I am out in the world trying to have impact with, you run a risk of, being led down a path that is A, not the path you want, and B, not the path that's going to serve the folks who really, really need you.
And then it becomes difficult for the market to read, who you serve. And then they get confused about that, and then the right people stop showing up, right? And the thing that we do that enables this more than any of the tactical, the application and this team member and that team member, like the thing that we fundamentally do that anybody can do at any scale is we are radically clear about who we serve. And that is clear from the marketing, from the initial material that we share, from any collateral that you receive or engage with in advance of a human interaction. It's perfectly clear. And then it's clear on all of our interactions who we serve. And so what happens is the prospect opts in to our target market. They go, oh, this organization seems to serve clients who are just like me. And it becomes an identity decision. Seth Godin says this famously, right? He says, people like us do things like this. When your brand rather can achieve that level of affinity with the market, where they look at your brand and your offer, your proposition, and they go, oh, people like us, I'm doing my best Seth Godin. Oh, that's a very Seth Godin thing. Oh, people like us do things like this. Like, that's a brand that serves people like me. Maybe I should look at it. Now you've done a very powerful thing, because now you can put a message out to the market in whatever format that looks like, right? And you can now be confident that you're attracting the right people, because you're being very clear about who the right people are, and they're able to then self-select and self-identify as the right fit for you. And there's a funny thing that happens when you then disqualify people. The right people will fight to become qualified. So, had a conversation with the same team member late last week who was facing a full calendar the following week, completely booked out, book solved, which is fairly typical for this team. And he says to me, listen, I've got about 9 calls that I'm like on the fence about. I label them in gray. I'm not quite sure. What do I do? And I said, cancel all of them. I said, disqualify all of them. Don't even think about it. Just disqualify all of them. Send them an email saying, here's why I think it's not a good fit. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Leave the door open, because you could be wrong. Guess what happened? Half of them replied and argued that they're qualified. They fought for the consultation. They said, no, actually, we are a good fit for these reasons. So what happens is, when you're really clear about who you serve, and when you're really clear about who it's for and why you serve those people, they're going to come to you in larger volumes, first of all, because they will self-select and self-identify as your customer. And when you try to disqualify them, if there's a reason to, the right people will then fight to be qualified for your service and become now more serious prospects because they understand that you're not handing this out willy-nilly. Like if you want to work with the right clients, the best thing that you can do is disqualify the wrong clients and be really clear about who you serve and why, because that's going to attract the right people in ways that no other kind of, aggressive marketing or sales tactic will ever do.
Yeah, and really, I mean, what could be better than having people trying to convince you that they are the people that you should be working with? Not much.